Medical disclaimer. The content of this video is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition, and always get proper treatment for serious medical conditions. Legal disclaimer. Use only legal measures to combat the virus and cooperate with government officials, first responders and healthcare workers to make the coronavirus a thing of the past and create a perfect society ASAP. Use common sense, logic and help your fellow humans if necessary, also to lower the risk of being vaccinated mandatorily ourselves and to end the pandemic as soon as possible. The objective of my videos is not to slander people nor to incite or trigger people, but to do the opposite, exposing it when people are wrongly accused and to create universal peace, world peace or just peace on earth. People are innocent till proven guilty in the court of law. One who knows of evidence must testify, not to convict anyone without a fair trial. Greetings, spear beings, greetings, supreme being. We are all the human race. Our common enemy is death. Welcome on Genuine News. I'm Ulrich Hofmann and this is the broadcast. Prevent martial law. Harvard researcher warns ISIS may be on the brink of using nuclear weapons. So I'm first going to show you what articles I will cover. Switch to the Opera browser. This is an article on global research. Some people might label it fake news. ISIS is a US-Israeli creation. Top 10 quote indications. Indication number 1, ISIS foreknowledge via leaked diadocs. ISIS is a US-Israeli creation. Indication number 2, ISIS never attacks Israel, etc. They did an unsuccessful attack, I think. But let's go to the other articles that I've prepared for you all. First, search on martial law. The link is also in the description to do this. One video is simply titled Martial Law by Anthony Wapow. Another video is called Talking with the Right-Wing Martial Law Theorist, 1,176 views. 35 likes, 8 dislikes according to the YouTube counter. I haven't seen that yet, so I don't know if it's any good. Breaking: 4,000 armed Trump supporters are plotting to surround the US Capitol, disrupt Biden's inauguration and prevent Democrats from going in, unquote. Lawmaker reveals they have thousands, I think 15,000 armed guards. Also hiding in trees, I've heard. So I doubt if that would be successful. I think that it could lead to martial law, so it's better to stay at home, and if you go out, wear a bulletproof vest. And if people go protesting, keep it peaceful, if that's even allowed. I don't know if that's banned due to coronavirus or whatever. But till the 20th, virtual inauguration of Joe Biden, I advise people to stay at home, only go for food, go out for food or other necessities. And other shops are closed anyway, at least in Europe. Fearing inside attack FBI vetting guard. This was on Salone Daily. SaloneEDaily.com. And so that's about 4,000 armed Trump supporters plotting to surround the US Capitol. I might read that. The next one is from POLITICO.com. Fearing inside attack FBI vetting guard troops in DC. And then about ISIS, the risk of a nuclear ISIS grows. HuffPost.com. ISIS claims it could buy its first nuclear weapon from Pakistan within a year. And that's the Independent Co. UK website. And on Daily Mail Co. UK, Harvard researcher warns ISIS may be on the brink of using nuclear weapons. So that's an article I could read as well. And then we have Would you support the president invoking martial law and holding a new election? On Quora, we will have martial law within 2 weeks, one way or another. On Hive.blog, well, that's the thing to prevent, of course, and there are infinite ways to prevent this scenario. The Insurrection Act of 1807. To suppress civil disorder, insurrection, or rebellion. Empowers the President of the United States to deploy US military and federalized National Guard troops. I've covered this in a previous broadcast. And people may use this broadcast, but it may only be used to prevent martial law. Because when they can declare martial law, if they would impose martial law, then they can use Executive Order 11,000 to put the US population in worker camps under federal supervision to build back better, World Economic Forum slogan, Bill Gates' compact cities. Martial law in the United States, perhaps I forgot to read this part of the Wiki martial law article. Martial law is the temporary imposition of direct military control of normal civil functions or suspension of civil law by a government, especially in response to a temporary emergency where civil forces are overwhelmed or in an occupied territory. So then I'm going to read the United States martial law part. Then the globalresearch.ca article, ISIS is a US-Israeli creation, top 10 indications. Another interesting article, anyone without a vaccine could be banned from pubs, restaurants, and even workplaces under radical new plan. Senate report links Hunter Biden to, quote, prostitution or human trafficking ring. NY posted from New York Post. Hunter Biden maintained close relationship with CCP-tied energy tycoon. New Senate report confirms Hunter Biden's biz ties to CCP raises troubling ties to Kremlin. Hunter Biden is an American lawyer. He is the second son of Nelia Biden, nay Hunter, and Joe Biden, who served in the United States Senate from 1973 to 2009 and as Vice President of the United States from 2009 to 2017. So it's the son of Joe Biden. And then ISIS nuclear attack in Europe is a real threat, say experts. Independent CO UK. So perhaps I should start with going through this accusation, basically, the idea that ISIS is a US-Israeli creation, Mossad and the like. Is Mossad mentioned? ISIS is a US-Israeli creation. Indication number 6. ISIS leader Baghdadi, a Mossad agent. And they already have a new leader, I've read. So this is a rather old article from 2019. Perhaps we can read the whole thing. And perhaps it was originally produced in 2016. There's a better version. Nah, let's use this. Okay, here we go. So I first had to copy and paste the whole text. Text-to-speech engine is not working normally, but I also see that the YouTube video with this article has been removed. So that could be a user YouTube violation. I have a proper disclaimer, and I want to read this. So can anybody disprove it somehow? People can always Skype me prologic999. And it's just because I think that it's unlikely that ISIS would have access to nuclear weapons, nuclear arsenal, and Mossad would have access to that, basically.
Colloidal silver. Colloidal silver. No number, you're wrong. Visit my YouTube channels, Genuine News, Perfect Society. Try something. Vegetarian. And the Future channel on YouTube. Be prepared, everyone. Form real resistance to death, our common enemy. Safety first. Mir, Salam, Shalom, Hiwa, Major typing on, Shanti. Universal Everton now. Universal peace now. ISIS is a U.S.-Israeli creation. Top 10 indications. Relevant article first posted on GR in April 2016. ISIS is a U.S.-Israeli creation, a fact as clear as the sky is blue. It's a truth as black and white as the colors on their flag. For many alternative news readers, this may be patently obvious, but this article is written for the large majority of people in the world who still have no idea who is really behind the rise of ISIS. No matter which name they go by, ISIS, ISIL, IS or Daesh. The group has been deliberately engineered by the US and Israel to achieve certain geopolitical goals. They are a religious, fundamentalist, Sunni terrorist organization created to terrorize and overthrow certain secular or Shiite Arab nations such as Syria and Iraq, but they are not just Islamic. They may be Muslims, and they may be advocating an Islamic state, but they are very much working towards the goals of Zionism. It's amazing how many people still struggle to get that point. We have been inundated with propaganda surrounding the fraudulent war on terror, notably terms such as Islamic terrorism and radical Islam, but more accurate phrases would be Zio-Islamic terrorism and radical Zio-Islam. Secret military agencies such as the CIA and the Mossad pull the strings. Here is a list of the top 10 indications that ISIS is a US-Israeli creation.
I think that Zionism itself is not good or bad. Or basically you could argue it's a good thing. Many people are for the Jewish people having their own homeland, Israel, the land from Dan to Beersheba, which we can also read about in the Bible, which some consider an abomination. I think religion is an illusion, to quote Freud. And all major religions are associated with pedophilia, incest, wars, and it's based on a lie that there is something higher than the humans, but we have to control aging in time. Therefore, I also help to expose religion. So I think some awesome religious people exist, and I'm a 100% truth teller. For example, I think that the Bible is a collection of plagiarized polytheistic myths rolled into monotheism, proving God does not exist. So people can rewind it, check the Zeitgeist movement documentary about religion. It's a rather old docu, or just use DuckDuckGo or the non-anonymous search engine Google.
ISIS is a U.S.-Israeli creation. Indication number 1. ISIS foreknowledge via leaked DIA doc. The DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, is one of 16 U.S. military intelligence agencies. According to a leaked document obtained by Judicial Watch, the DIA wrote on August 12, 2012 that there is the possibility of establishing a declared or undeclared Salafist principality in eastern Syria, Hasaka and Deir, and this is exactly what the supporting powers to the opposition want, in order to isolate the Syrian regime. This was written before ISIS came onto the world stage. Clearly ISIS was no random uprising, but rather a carefully groomed and orchestrated controlled opposition group. The supporting powers to the opposition referred to are Saudi Arabia, Turkey and the GCC nations such as Qatar, who are in turn being supported by the US-UK-Israeli axis in their struggle to overthrow Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. As I outlined in this article, Syrian ground war about to begin? WW 3 inches closer. The US is backing the Sunni nations while Russia, China and Iran are backing the Shia nations, so there is a definite potential for this to erupt into World War III. Below are screenshots of the actual DIA document. ISIS US-Israeli Creation 1. ISIS US-Israeli Creation 2. ISIS is a US-Israeli creation. Indication number 2. ISIS never attacks Israel. It is more than highly strange and suspicious that ISIS never attacks Israel. It is another indication that ISIS is controlled by Israel. If ISIS were a genuine and independent uprising that was not covertly orchestrated by the US and Israel, why would they not try to attack the Zionist regime, which has attacked almost of all of its Muslim neighbors ever since its inception in 1948? Israel has attacked Egypt, Syria and Lebanon, and of course has decimated Palestine. It has systemically tried to divide and conquer its Arab neighbors. It continually complains of Islamic terrorism. Yet, when ISIS comes on the scene as the bloody and barbaric king of Islamic terrorism, it finds no fault with Israel and sees no reason to target a regime which has perpetrated massive injustice against Muslims. This stretches credibility to a snapping point. ISIS and Israel don't attack each other, they help each other. Israel was treating ISIS soldiers and other anti-Assad rebels in its hospitals. Mortal enemies or best of friends?
Before I forget, we also must have a moratorium on depleted uranium weapons, and some call them the illegal unconstitutional wars in the Middle East. Costofwar.com shows 5 trillion spent on these illegal wars. So how can we stop this? Basically they claim the bankers make money from wars. That's because they make a deal with these governments and the victor has to pay the debt of the vanquished.
ISIS US-Israeli creation Toyota Akbar ISIS US-Israeli creation Toyota. ISIS is a US-Israeli creation. Indication number 3, Toyota trucks. Why Russia is.
People can also look at the Wikipedia Free CIA Vatican edited encyclopedia article US state-sponsored terrorism and Iran state-sponsored terrorism. So how can these states put an end to that? That's my question to you all. People know it's Skype ProLogic999. To have a debate or make a video. Not wasting time, we need to prevent martial law. So any ideas are welcome also via the chat. Please like, subscribe and share on your timeline or your media platforms. For a future for humanity, to create a perfect society in which we all will live happily eternally. Preventing beats curing. Trust no one, nothing is what it seems. Recovery begins more and more often with non-compliance.
Serious about fighting terrorism and the US isn't. America protects Al-Qaeda and ISIS. Where did ISIS get an entire fleet of matching Toyota pickup trucks? Why do so many of its photo shots feature a fleet of matching Toyotas, matching in both model and color? As this Information Clearinghouse article humorously states, the official story is ISIS stole them from the good terrorists, al-Nusra, who were originally given their cool wheels by the US government, which would seem to beg a couple of inquiries. Not least of which is, why are the US giving any terrorists matching fleets of luxury SUVs? And for that matter, how many fleets are we talking about? So, exactly how many trucks did the US supply? Where are ISIS currently garaging this impressive collection? And why do they all have to be Toyotas? Is it a terrorist thing, or simply a US gov preference? Do Toyota mind the brand association? Or the fact that so many of the ISIS drive-by photo ops look like perverted car ads? Some of these trucks were actually used vehicles that got sent from the US and Canada over to Syria. This Texan plumber discovered to his horror that his old truck was being used in the war, replete with his business name still on the door. ISIS is a US-Israeli creation. Indication number 4, ISIS first-class social media skills. The issue of the Toyotas leads us to the next question about ISIS. Who's handling their publicity? How have they managed to get so many photos of Toyota truck drive-bys? How have they managed to master Western social media so well to spread their message, propaganda and threats? How have they managed to produce slick videos depicting fake beheadings? How does a barbaric group of killers, who speak a language very different to English, who espouse fundamentalist, religious ideals, such as Sharia law, and often criticize all things Western, manage to develop such excellent social media skills? ISIS is a US-Israeli creation. Indication number 5, Israeli group site first to release ISIS footage. Another key giveaway that ISIS is a US-Israeli creation is that the Israeli group site, Search for International Terrorist Entities, are often the first to find and publicly release the video, as their co-founder Rita Katz has let slip on occasion. Site was involved in the slew of fake green screen ISIS beheadings of 2014. Speaking of fake beheadings, why did this fictional Turkish TV drama show a beheading just like that of ISIS? ISIS is a US-Israeli creation. Indication number 6, ISIS leader Baghdadi a Mossad agent. Although this indication is hard to confirm, there were reports apparently originating from Edward Snowden that the leader of ISIS, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, was actually an Israeli Mossad agent by the name of Simon Elliott or Elliott Shimon. GR editor's note, this source and quotation are yet to be fully verified, including the source originating from Edward Snowden. Simon Elliott, Elliott Shimon, aka al-Baghdadi, was born of 2 Jewish parents and is a Mossad agent. We offer below 3 translations that want to assert that the Caliph al-Baghdadi is a full Mossad agent and that he was born Jewish father and mother. The real name of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is Simon Elliott. The so-called Elliott was recruited by the Israeli Mossad and was trained in espionage and psychological warfare against Arab and Islamic societies. This information was attributed to Edward Snowden. Bashar Assad, President of Syria. The US has been actively plotting strategies to destabilize and overthrow his government. ISIS is a US-Israeli creation. Indication number 7, leaked cables showing US plotting Syrian overthrow. Julian Assange of WikiLeaks did a great job in capturing information about what was happening in Syria years before the Arab Springs and current war started in 2011. He reveals how William Roebuck, then charged affairs at the U.S. Embassy in Damascus, was plotting to destabilize the Syrian government. The following quotes from Roebuck's cables to Washington show how he was outlining the vulnerabilities of Assad. Vulnerability. The alliance with Tehran. Bashar is walking a fine line in his increasingly strong relations with Iran, seeking necessary support while not completely alienating Syria's moderate Sunni Arab neighbors by being perceived as aiding Persian and fundamentalist Shia interests. Bashar's decision to not attend the Talabani, Ahmadinejad summit in Tehran following FM Moalem's trip to Iraq can be seen as a manifestation of Bashar's sensitivity to the Arab optic on his Iranian alliance. Possible action. Play on Sunni fears of Iranian influence. There are fears in Syria that the Iranians are active in both Shia proselytizing and conversion of, mostly poor, Sunnis. Though often exaggerated, such fears reflect an element of the Sunni community in Syria that is increasingly upset by and focused on the spread of Iranian influence in their country through activities ranging from mosque construction to business.
At this point, I would like to make clear that if the ISIS Mossad organization prevents terrorist attacks, then that's a good thing. But if they orchestrate them, then that's, of course, forbidden, illegal, treasonous, and some would argue they should be hanged after a fair trial.
Both the local Egyptian and Saudi missions here, as well as prominent Syrian Sunni religious leaders, are giving increasing attention to the matter, and we should coordinate more closely with their governments on ways to better publicize and focus regional attention on the issue. ISIS is a US-Israeli creation. Indication number 8, Russia bombs ISIS, US protects ISIS. Before Russia militarily entered Syria, the US claims it was attacking ISIS, yet Russia was able to do in a few months what the US has been unable to do for years. Why? Is the US military that incompetent, or this is further proof that the US has been funding and supporting ISIS all this time? At one point there were even reports that US soldiers were told not to fire on ISIS targets, even if they had a clear view of them, as this Free Beacon article reports. US military pilots who have returned from the fight against the Islamic State in Iraq are confirming that they were blocked from dropping 75% of their ordnance on terror targets because they could not get clearance to launch a strike, according to a leading member of Congress. Why did US State Department spokesman Mark Toner struggle to celebrate the fact that ISIS had lost Palmyra recently? ISIS is a US-Israeli creation. Indication number 9. ISIS always the excuse for further intervention. Finally, consider this: why is ISIS always the perfect excuse for further military intervention in Syria? Given the history of foreign meddling in Syria, particularly by the US and Israel in the last 70 years, isn't it rather convenient that the specter of ISIS is the justification offered for proposed no-fly zones, airstrikes and ground troops? How would the US and Israel conquer the Middle East without their pet Frankenstein ISIS? Share this article with those who haven't yet awoken to the truth about ISIS. Many have already seen through the propaganda. Once enough of us do, the usefulness of this ridiculous, dangerous and vaudevillian terrorist group will expire, and maybe a critical mass of people will pull back the curtain and, for once, get a glimpse of the true puppet masters. Concluding note: ISIS is a US-Israeli creation. Indication number 10, ISIS is an acronym for Mossad, the Israeli Secret Intelligence Service. Interesting coincidence. ISIS itself is an acronym, not just for Islamic State in Iraq and Syria, but for Israeli Secret Intelligence Service. This is another way to describe the Mossad, the shady Zionist spy agency whose motto is by way of deception, "Thou shalt do war." In this video, below, the two authors being interviewed, Dan Raviv and Yossi Melman, admit that the acronym ISIS equals Mossad. Makia Freeman is the editor of alternative news, independent media site The Freedom Articles and senior researcher at toolsforfreedom.com. Facebook here, writing on many aspects of truth and freedom, from exposing aspects of the worldwide conspiracy to suggesting solutions for how humanity can create a new system of peace and abundance. Minor editing by Global Research. Colloidal silver. Colloidal silver.
Okay, more info about colloidal silver in my previous broadcasts. To help curb the spread, there are 5 effective measures of which it's scientifically proven that they're effective, that we can implement besides the WHO guidelines. So check it out on YouTube. I'm looking for a specific picture, haven't found it. So then I want to read: ISIS nuclear attack in Europe is a real threat, say experts on independent UK. Selecting the text, let you all see what I'm doing. And this is live, so I can read the chat remarks while this is spread out and search for that specific picture that I want to show you all.
ISIS nuclear attack in Europe is a real threat, say experts. International think tank on proliferation warns that a possible dirty bomb attack on a Western capital is high. Kim Sengupta, Amsterdam, Tuesday, June 7, 2016, 20:36:39 comments. ISIS shows off its military hardware in a propaganda video from 2014. ISIS shows off its military hardware in a propaganda video from 2014. The threat of a terrorist attack using nuclear material is the highest since the end of the Cold War, with ISIS actively trying to acquire weapons of mass destruction, according to a leading international think tank on proliferation. ISIS has already carried out numerous chemical weapons attacks in Syria. We know it wants to go further by carrying out a nuclear attack in the heart of Europe. This, combined with poor levels of security at a host of nuclear research centers in the former Soviet Union, mean the threat of a possible dirty bomb attack on a Western capital is high, said Moshe Kantor, the president of the Day International Luxembourg Forum. Read more. UK Special Forces operating on front line against ISIS in Syria. Read more. UK Special Forces operating on front line against ISIS in Syria. The warning from the organization, whose members include former government ministers and senior officials from Russia and the West, comes amid deep apprehension that jihadists will attempt to carry out atrocities during the impending Euro 2016 football championship in France. The forum is not suggesting that a terrorist nuclear attack is likely to now take place during the tournament, but Dr. Kantor pointed out that the Islamist cell which carried out the Brussels attacks 2 months ago were believed to be monitoring workers and security arrangements at a Belgian nuclear facility. Their previous documented attempts to gain access to a nuclear power station in Belgium are evidence of their intent, he stated at an international conference in Amsterdam. The terrorists don't necessarily have to use a dirty bomb. We are not just talking about stolen nuclear material. Using conventional explosives in a nuclear plant, such as smuggling in a bomb, would have catastrophic consequences. Moshe Kantor, president of the International Luxembourg Forum. Moshe Kantor, president of the International Luxembourg Forum, Reuters. Former British Defence Secretary Day Brown, a member of the Forum and vice-chairman of the Nuclear Threat Initiative, NTI, said the threat of nuclear terrorism was a highly significant and complex issue which needed a unified international response. It shouldn't be a surprise that if terrorists get hold of nuclear material they will try to use it. We also know that they are seeking such material. There were reports, for example, of ISIS getting hold of uranium isotopes when they captured Mosul, he said. Iraqi civilians recount horrors of battle for Fallujah. It isn't that hard to build a dirty bomb. They may not kill that many people with such a bomb, but the effect on the environment, the infrastructure and the psychological impact on people would be devastating. They could also use cyber warfare to target a nuclear facility. Advertising. The meeting in Amsterdam marks the 30th anniversary of the Reykjavik summit between U.S. President Ronald Reagan and Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev, which paved the way for a historic missile treaty between the U.S. and the Soviet Union. It comes after a nuclear conference hosted by President Barack Obama in Washington earlier this year, which focused on the threat of a terrorist attack using nuclear material by ISIS and other extremist groups following the Paris and Brussels attacks. You're at email.com. Please enter your email address. Please enter a valid email address. Please enter a valid email address. The Independent would like to keep you informed about offers, events, and updates by email. Please tick the box if you would like to be contacted. Read our full mailing list consent terms here. In pictures, the rise of ISIS show all 74 fighters of the Islamic State wave the group's flag from a damaged display of a government fighter jet following the battle for the Tabqa air base, in Raqqa, Syria. Fighters from Islamic State groups sit on their tank during a parade in Raqqa, Syria. Fighters from the Islamic State group pray at the Tabqa airbase after capturing it from the Syrian government in Raqqa, Syria. Fighters from extremist Islamic State group parade in Raqqa, Syria. The President's Deputy National Security Advisor, Ben Rhodes, said, "We know that terrorist organizations have the desire to get access to these raw materials and to have a nuclear device." Read more. ISIS supporters hack elderly Hindu priest to death in Bangladesh. ISIS supporters hack elderly Hindu priest to death in Bangladesh. ISIS bombing, several killed by suicide car bomb in holy Iraqi city of Karbala. ISIS bombing, several killed by suicide car bomb in holy Iraqi city of Karbala. Escapees shot fleeing Fallujah as civilians bear the brunt of anti-ISIS offensives across Iraq and Syria. Escapees. Around 2,000 metric tons of highly enriched uranium and separated plutonium, that is being used internationally in civilian and military programs, could be turned into a nuclear bomb if stolen or diverted, said the White House, but fewer than half of the 50 countries attending the summit had even agreed to secure their sources of radiological material. President Vladimir Putin refused to attend the Washington meeting with the Kremlin, claiming it was an American attempt to take over the system of securing radioactive material. It was revealed last autumn that 4 attempts by Russian-linked gangs in Moldova, a former Soviet state, to sell nuclear material to terrorists, including ISIS, has been foiled. Evidence laid before the courts by Moldovan authorities shows that the smugglers had tried to exploit a breakdown in cooperation between Russia and the West on security issues. Pakistani President Nawaz Sharif cancelled his visit to Washington after an Islamist terrorist bombing killed 72 people. Pakistani President Nawaz Sharif cancelled his visit to Washington after an Islamist terrorist bombing killed 72 people, Getty Images. Pakistani President Nawaz Sharif also cancelled his Washington visit after an Islamist terrorist bombing killed 72 people. His country, which has a nuclear arsenal, and figures in the military and security establishment that are sympathetic to jihadists, is viewed by analysts as a prime source for a terrorist device. President Obama had repeatedly stressed the danger of nuclear terrorism, and his emphasis on nuclear disarmament was an important factor in him winning the Nobel Peace Prize. Months into his presidency, he said in a much-publicized speech in Prague that nuclear weapons were the most dangerous legacy of the Cold War. But in Amsterdam, Dr. Kander held that the current impasse on nuclear arms control was due to the stance of Washington. The United States' refusal to discuss limits for its missile defense program is a bottleneck for talks, which impedes the entire process of controlling nuclear weapons and heightens the threat of a nuclear incident. If we take the matter seriously, there should be no sacred cows either among defensive or offensive weapons, he argued.
Okay, so that was the whole article. And I've added the links in the description so everybody can check the articles for themselves. I found a picture, the ISIS dollar thing. So basically dollar is a letter S with 2 eyes through it, 2 stripes or lines basically. Sometimes it's shown with 1 stripe. I can search on dollar symbol. Yeah, the first result is with 2 stripes with DuckDuckGo. And then the Harvard professor article. Harvard researcher warns ISIS may be on the brink of using nuclear weapons. And this is from 2016. Daily Mail Co. UK. And this was Independent Co. UK. ISIS nuclear attack in Europe is a real threat, say experts. I'm just restarting the speech engine so that I can just copy the text and it starts reading. Somehow that fails to work after starting OBS. Sometimes. And I still have to adjust that volume level so that it automatically adjusts. Anyway, we can start reading now.
Harvard researcher warns ISIS may be on the brink of using nuclear weapons. Chilling report highlights risk of dirty bombs, power station sabotage and device detonation. Recent report explains that nuclear threat rises as terror groups evolve. The authors point to 3 types of nuclear or radiological terrorism includes detonation of bomb, use of dirty bomb, or sabotage of facility. No firm indication of intentions yet, but report warns better security needed. For the latest Islamic State news updates, visit www.dailymail.co.uk/ISIS. The possibility of a nuclear-armed ISIS may not be as far off as many experts suggest, a Harvard researcher has warned. In a recent report for a project on managing the atom from Harvard's Belfer Center, Matthew Bunn explains how the threat of nuclear terrorism is rising as extremist groups continue to evolve. While there has not been any concrete indication that ISIS is pursuing nuclear materials, the researcher says that the actions and rhetoric of the group suggest its need for such powerful weapons. The possibility of a nuclear-armed ISIS may not be as far off as many experts suggest, a Harvard researcher has warned. In a recent report for a project on managing the atom from Harvard's Belfer Center, Matthew Bunn explains how the threat of nuclear terrorism is rising as extremist groups continue to evolve. +2 The possibility of a nuclear-armed ISIS may not be as far off as many experts suggest, a Harvard researcher has warned. In a recent report for a project on managing the atom from Harvard's Belfer Center, Matthew Bunn explains how the threat of nuclear terrorism is rising as extremist groups continue to evolve. Threat of nuclear terrorism. The report details the threat of 3 types of nuclear or radiological terrorism: detonation of an actual nuclear bomb, sabotage of a nuclear facility, use of a dirty bomb to spread radioactive material. Each of these comes at a different level of risk, and the authors focus for the most part on the potential danger from the use of an actual nuclear bomb, as these results would be most catastrophic. Nuclear sites may see tightened security, but there are also numerous other locations where radioactive materials can be acquired, and are less protected. Hospitals and industrial sites, for instance, also contain such materials in a more easily accessible location, the researcher explains.
So I think it's good to keep an eye on our environment and report any suspicious activities that can also be done anonymously, and think about what we can do to lower the terrorism threat. I would think they're all busy with COVID basically, and perhaps they would try to spread that somehow as well. Another potential threat is mutually assured destruction in relation to this. So I hope they prevent that somehow. And perhaps the intelligence agencies have done a good job preventing mutually assured destruction. So that wouldn't benefit anyone, especially not if they have a doomsday device that could split the Earth. Tesla talked about it also. And it is true that scalar weapons have made nuclear weapons obsolete. That's another reason I disagree with Trump's revising of the American nuclear arsenal, which would cost about $1 trillion over the next decade. So since he made that clear, I have not supported Trump anymore. And Trump and Biden may both be Knights of Malta according to online sources. Jesuit coadjutors, some call them.
In recent years, there have been numerous occasions of suspicious events relating to nuclear facilities in Belgium, Defense One points out. While it would be difficult to ISIS or other terror groups to obtain the knowledge of security features and access nuclear materials, Bono explains that the evidence of such intentions are growing. The report precedes the 2016 Nuclear Security Summit, which will take place between March 31 and April 1. According to the authors, the summit will help to determine the feasibility of terrorist groups getting their hands on nuclear materials. The threats come from the possibility of 3 types of nuclear or radiological terrorism, the authors write: detonation of an actual nuclear bomb, sabotage of a nuclear facility, or use of a dirty bomb to spread radioactive material. Each of these comes at a different level of risk, and the authors focus for the most part on the potential danger from the use of an actual nuclear bomb, as these results would be most catastrophic. Terrorism supporter, 25, who spent 18 months in jail for associating with extremist group is back behind bars just 2 weeks after his release for looking at beheadings and torture material online. dailymail.co.uk. Iraq issues warrant to arrest Trump for premeditated murder over airstrike which saw its paramilitary chief killed alongside Iran's General Soleimani. July 1, 2021.
It's 7th of January 2021, of course. We're not in July yet. Okay. What else may be interesting? Let's take a look at the chat as well. Oh, there are some people writing stuff. Okay. Good day to you, Ulrich. I just heard that 44 people have died after taking the vaccine. I made a video about that also, the VAERS Vaccine Adverse Events Reporting System, wonder.cdc.gov, there people can check it for themselves. So that was reported as adverse event for 44 people, death. So yeah, that's correct, I think. Though the number may be higher. Somebody wrote 55 in some chat. I could not verify that. ISIS was created by USA, ? Well, some think it might be Mossad creation, and that the supposed leader was an ISIS Mossad agent, basically Bakr al-Baghdadi. Real name supposedly Shimon Elliot or Elliot Shimon. But I think there are people that claim that it's fake news, perhaps also propaganda. So if somebody denies it, it doesn't mean that it's not true. You'd have to back it up with some evidence. And with that global research article, I think that it made it more likely, but you could argue that's not 100% evidence either. And nothing they can write can be evidence that proves things to ourselves with 100% certainty, no matter what the source is. Trust no one, nothing is what it seems. So the link is in the description. People can check the article for themselves. Original Rum and Coke writes, who in history has used atom bombs on cities? I can put it on the picture slideshow for now. Some people believe that it was never done, that Hiroshima and Nagasaki were firebombed. Some people think that nuclear weapons do not exist, at least mobile nuclear weapons do not exist. There's also a book, Harmonic 33, about this, and they think that for a nuclear explosion to occur with non-mobile nuclear weapons, so stationary devices basically, there is a requirement, there's a harmonic relationship between the sun and the earth or whatever. So only on specific days they could do a nuclear detonation, basically. That's the book Harmonic 33. Probably I explained it wrong, but people can Google it. So some people think, for example, that there's such a device under the Statue of Liberty. And if they've planned to declare martial law, then perhaps they've also planned other staged events that would bring it about. So the question is, what could that be and how can we prevent this? And of course, the US citizens have sworn an oath to protect their country against enemies, foreign and domestic. And I think that people that want to do away with the US, to impose a satanic Luciferian totalitarian global government, are also enemies in the sense of the oath, constitutional oath, to protect the country against enemies, foreign and domestic. Who in history has used atom bombs on cities? Supposedly the US, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Don't know if there's a consensus, if they claim there's a consensus about it. But you can argue it's the US government, so it's wrong to blame the US as a whole for things the government has done. The biggest genocides were also perpetrated by governments, and many people are suffering now because of the disproportional, unconstitutional coronavirus measures, which may be causing more deaths than the virus, according to some experts. Who wrote the Bible? Well, some would claim Abraham. The Bible has been rewritten 154 times. Original Rum and Coke is reporting all this. Thank you for your chat remarks. I enjoy reading them. Yes, I noticed that ISIS never attacked Israel. Very strange. Well, I've read that they have done one unsuccessful attempt. This stream should have many more viewers. I also thought so about some other stream that I'm watching today, the Gulden Middenweg, a Dutch channel, but it's in Dutch, so then it cannot get millions of views in theory. Who paid for all the Toyota trucks? Well, people Googled it. That's one thing people have been reporting about, perhaps also memeing about. I agree with you, Bert Brickstow writes. Original rum and coke. Hey Bert, it's good to see you. Thanks, you and all. Ulrich, okay, ice is settled. Was the big Baghdadi. Simon Elliot, holy crap. I've heard them called the Dirty Tricks Brigade. Good vid, John Francis writes. Thanks, Aram. Bert Brickstow writes, part of the global power grab that has dominated human history, corruption of the natural order, glimpse the masters. Is off. Flying Dutchman 17 writes, ISIS paid by Bush-Obama-Biden administration. Original rum and coke, Israeli Secret Intelligence Service is ISIS. New system, are those the shoes you wear? Bert Brickstow writes. Good vid, fear. Bert Brickstow, Jordan B. Peterson has very good podcast on Spotify. Tell us about Bill Gates' Compact City. What year is this article? Atom Management Inc. Oppenheimer knew it was bad. Let's hope. No benefit to be gotten from destruction. We feel great about all this, Ulrich. Mashallah. Okay. Well, I can make you moderator, so you can post articles to this chat, Bert Brickstow. And please don't use it to censor anybody, it's just so you can post full web URL links to good information. If you know anything that we need to know about, put it in the chat, please. Okay, thank you for your comments. Let's see more intel on the internet. Intelnet. What is this? Which article do you all think I should read? You said more about Bill Gates' compact cities. Well, the theory about that is that they cannot build these cities without demolishing the normal cities. It's about sustainability. So building even more cities in their mind that would produce even more CO2. And that would be a bad thing in their mind, basically. And it has to do with the carbon tax scam of Al Gore paid by George Soros for his anthropogenic man-caused global warming hoax story. Global warming swindle. The carbon tax scam, about which you can see a good video on the Clear Energy Alliance's channel. Okay. So I'm just going to check what I could read next. This is coming closer. Fearing inside attack, FBI vetting guard troops in DC. On POLITICO.com.
Biden inauguration date 2021, fearing inside attack, FBI vetting guard troops in D.C. The massive undertaking reflects the fears that have gripped Washington following the deadly January 6 insurrection. National Guard at Capitol. National Guard soldiers head to the east front of the U.S. Capitol. Photo by Samuel Corm, Getty Images. By Associated Press, January 17, 2021 to 03 p.m. EST, Washington. U.S. defense officials say they are worried about an insider attack or other threat from service members involved in securing President-elect Joe Biden's inauguration, prompting the FBI to vet all of the 25,000 National Guard troops coming into Washington for the event. The massive undertaking reflects the extraordinary security concerns that have gripped Washington following the deadly January 6 insurrection at the U.S. Capitol by pro-Trump rioters. and it underscores fears that some of the very people assigned to protect the city over the next several days could present a threat to the incoming president and other VIPs in attendance. Army Secretary Ryan McCarthy told the Associated Press on Sunday that officials are conscious of the potential threat, and he warned commanders to be on the lookout for any problems within their ranks as the inauguration approaches. So far, however, he and other leaders say they have seen no evidence of any threats, and officials said the vetting hadn't flagged any issues. "We're continually going through the process, and taking second, third looks at every one of the individuals assigned to this operation," McCarthy said in an interview after he and other military leaders went through an exhaustive, 3-hour security drill in preparation for Wednesday's inauguration. He said Guard members are also getting training on how to identify potential insider threats. About 25,000 members of the National Guard are streaming into Washington from across the country, at least 2.5 times the number for previous inaugurals. And while the military routinely reviews service members for extremist connections, the FBI screening is in addition to any previous monitoring. Multiple officials said the process began as the first Guard troops began deploying to D.C. more than a week ago, and they said it is slated to be complete by Wednesday. "The question is that all of them? Are there others?" said McCarthy. "We need to be conscious of it, and we need to put all of the mechanisms in place to thoroughly vet these men and women who would support any operations like this."
So, what do you all think? Will this help prevent martial law? 25,000 National Guard troops coming into Washington? Or is it like they carry weapons? All that can happen is that somebody gets shot or whatever. And how many people know this? Are there protesters that don't know about these National Guard troops? Armed Guard, etc. Or is this going to prevent martial law? Brett Brickstow writes, so we'll possibly have some sort of false flag inauguration day thing. Well, somebody wrote something about Capitol, 19th of January. And I'm for preventing that, so I hope they keep it peaceful, go unarmed if they go at all, perhaps wear a bulletproof vest. And if it's forbidden to protest, then of course don't go. At least till the 21st. To prevent martial law from being imposed is more important, because then the US citizens end up in worker camps, and then they can use the US to take over the rest of the world to a certain extent, because the US paid more than all the other countries combined on the bloody military-industrial complex, the bloody war machine.
In a situation like this one, FBI vetting would involve running people's names through databases and watch lists maintained by the Bureau to see if anything alarming comes up. That could include involvement in prior investigations or terrorism-related concerns, said David Gomez, a former FBI National Security Supervisor in Seattle. Insider threats have been a persistent law enforcement priority in the years after the September 11, 2001, attacks. But in most cases, the threats are from homegrown insurgents radicalized by Al-Qaeda, the Islamic State group or similar groups. In contrast, the threats against Biden's inauguration have been fueled by supporters of President Donald Trump, far-right militants, white supremacists and other radical groups. Many believe Trump's baseless accusations that the election was stolen from him, a claim that has been refuted by many courts, the Justice Department and Republican officials in key battleground states. The insurrection at the Capitol began after Trump made incendiary remarks at the January 6 rally. According to McCarthy, service members from across the military were at that rally, but it's not clear how many were there or who may have participated in the breach at the Capitol. So far, only a couple of current active duty or National Guard members have been arrested in connection with the Capitol assault, which left 5 people dead. The dead included a Capitol Police officer and a woman shot by police as she climbed through a window in a door near the House chamber. Gen. Daniel R. Hawkinson, chief of the National Guard Bureau, has been meeting with Guard troops as they arrive in D.C. and as they gather downtown. He said he believes there are good processes in place to identify any potential threats. If there's any indication that any of our soldiers or airmen are expressing things that are extremist views, it's either handed over to law enforcement or dealt with the chain of command immediately, he said. The insider threat, however, was just one of the security concerns voiced by officials on Sunday, as dozens of military, National Guard, law enforcement and Washington, D.C., officials and commanders went through a security rehearsal in Northern Virginia. As many as 36 leaders lined tables that ringed a massive color-coded map of D.C. reflected onto the floor. Behind them were dozens more National Guard officers and staff, with their eyes trained on additional maps and charts displayed on the wall. The Secret Service is in charge of event security, but there is a wide variety of military and law enforcement personnel involved, ranging from the National Guard and the FBI to the Washington, D.C., Capitol and Park Police. Commanders went over every aspect of the city's complicated security lockdown, with McCarthy and others peppering them with questions about how the troops will respond in any scenario and how well they can communicate with the other enforcement agencies scattered around the city. Hawkinson said he believes his troops have been adequately equipped and prepared, and that they are rehearsing as much as they can to be prepared for any contingency. The major security concern is an attack by armed groups of individuals, as well as planted explosives and other devices, McCarthy said. Intelligence reports suggest that groups are organizing armed rallies leading up to Inauguration Day, and possibly after that. The bulk of the Guard members will be armed, and McCarthy said units are going through repeated drills to practice when and how to use force and how to work quickly with law enforcement partners. Law enforcement officers would make any arrests. Most read a smashed mirror is seen in Nancy Pelosi's office. FBI investigating whether woman stole laptop from Pelosi's office to sell it to Russia. Graham asks Schumer to hold Senate vote on canceling impeachment trial. Trump blows up the Arizona GOP on his way out. FBI vetting guardsmen in D.C. amid fears of insider attack. Heavily fortified state houses around USC. Small protests filed under National Guard, FBI, Al-Qaeda, Donald Trump 2020.
That was the Political article. I was writing some stuff, so I was not able to scroll through the article text, etc. In response to chaos associated with protests and mob action, United States martial law has been declared for a state or other locality under various circumstances, including in response to chaos associated with protests and mob action. San Francisco during the 1934 West Coast waterfront strike. Montgomery, Alabama following the mob actions against the Freedom Riders. So possible martial law scenarios, I think, can be split up in 3 basic ways: global pandemic martial law, protest riot martial law, and terrorist threat martial law. So which one of those is most likely? And I'm using Paint, Microsoft Paint to do this. I can also use this. Okay. Did I read Hive blog already? Let's paste it in here, see what I just read. Which article was the one I just read? Perhaps you guys in the chat know. Is what true? Mr. Troll writes, is this true? Bert Bristow writes to bring on martial law. Don't go, it's lockdown, prevention, non-violence. So I don't even know if I already read this. I'm gonna read it anyway, hive.blog. And the question is if these scenarios could happen, basically. Global pandemic, martial law, there have to be a lot more cases. Protest, riot, martial law is unlikely with all that armed guard. Terrorist threat, martial law would also serve the purpose of blaming what they consider their enemies, basically. So then everybody can keep an eye out on their environment. But if it's a black operation, then it can be planned thoroughly. And the question is if we can prevent it, or if people on the inside of our government should prevent this. But we can at least keep an eye on our environment and call it in if we notice any suspicious activity. Bags being placed somewhere. Or if we see a tank with a big rocket on it rolling somewhere, or that type of thing, people can start asking questions. And remember to always mistrust authority because some people were killed, murdered for questioning authority.
We will have martial law within 2 weeks one way or another. Smith Labs, 66 in Information War. 6 days ago Biden was talking today about using the Insurrection Act as soon as he gets in office to come after conservatives. The reason they are so adamant on impeaching Trump immediately is they're afraid that he will invoke the Insurrection Act and declare martial law and force a review of the actual votes. They cannot allow, because they face prison if they do. If they continue to follow the plans used by the National Socialists in Germany in 1930s, they will need more false flag attacks like happened on the 6th, to justify their totalitarian takeover. Since they have been following lockstep, what's the National Socialists? I see no reason for them to change now. It's interesting to note 2 items when the National Socialists were through with their shock troops, which they called.
I don't know if they can still do that now there's an impeachment. Bert Bristow writes, economic difficulties and food shortages. What does HRH, Prince of Wales, say about Great Reset? I don't know, perhaps you have a link, or perhaps you already know. Let us know in the chat, please. I gotta talk to my father while reading the rest of the article.
The brown shirts, they invited them to a summit on power sharing, and kill them. Historically speaking, this has to be where the Democrats are heading with BLM and Antifa. I don't see any other option. The other interesting item to note is the National Socialists use their 41% vote as a mandate to murder their political opponents after blaming them for everything the Nazis actually did. Our socialists will do the same thing here. They've been practicing by burning your cities to the ground and calling it peaceful. Their stated goal is to cleanse their idea of democracy from all influence of those who voted for Trump. This means they intend to murder, arrest, or otherwise control 75 million people, likely by the tool of starvation. The only thing that they have failed in this far, is the total removal of firearms, which the Nazis did early on. Our fascists, calling themselves socialists, must achieve this soon, as they cannot seize total power over an armed populace. This is as was intended by our founding fathers. I hate to say it, but in order to accomplish this they're going to need several more false flag attacks. They be able to stage them if they need to. They've done it before, or they'll just send trolls in the peaceful protest, with Molotov cocktails. Fascist governments use violence as a political tool. They project blame on others for what they do, as a justification for seizing tyrannical power. They have proven themselves to be willing to commit murder to gain political clout. So we need to expect these false flag attacks. Fascists also use businesses to force political results if they can't achieve.
Needless to say, don't use Molotovs. Don't lower yourselves to the level of the population reducers, super criminal. So don't engage in any civil disobedience. I also wrote that in the Extinction Rebellion chat.
Legally.
In this phase we really need to prevent martial law. Some people are out to create that. And that's terrorism. It can also be done by the governments. And it must be prevented somehow. But be careful out there, be prepared. Depart from evil and do good. When you leave the Vo writes too late. Really? Why is that? It's never too late to start creating a perfect society in which we all will live happily eternally. And that's what these governments should be pursuing, not population reduction. Because the taxpayers pay tax money to be protected and served. And the state is a legal person that has to protect and serve us. Therefore.
This is why we find Twitter and Facebook and Amazon censoring political content. It's also why we see Walmart, with an entire sporting section that's now empty shelves, because they were told to. It's also why we see a lot of businesses being.
What I remember is that Amazon banned Tommy Robinson's book, but they allow Mein Kampf, the Hitler book that is banned in a lot of countries. According to some, he didn't write that himself, but okay. So that's pretty weird.
Forced to support an illegal mask mandate. They don't have the legal standing to do it, but if they can get the businesses to force the issue, they still control. This is pure fascism, the ultimate goal of which is totalitarianism. So to reiterate what I started this article with, either President Trump will call the Insurrection Act, and institute martial law to force review of all the voting irregularities, or the incoming POTUS Biden will do so in order to support the hunting expeditions he intends to use to destroy all opposing political views. Welcome to the Banana Republic's people. There's only 9 days left. Fix it. Dayton will start the Second American Civil War. I'm relatively sure they're not being patient enough, which is a common fascist failing, so they will attack before they've disarmed 75 million people. This will make the situation ungovernable, by definition. So one way or another within the next 2 weeks we will be under martial law. I don't like it in either case, but the first scenario is the only one where we survive as a constitutional republic. Right now the liberals are dancing and celebrating, and are looking for a toilet paper franchise.
So one consideration people have to make is going to a safe country in this phase. If they have the money to go to a safe country, that may be the best option. A country without COVID pass and without Blue Force tracking. I've covered it in my previous broadcasts. Forbes list countries with the weakest armies. Because it's no fun if you have an off-the-grid farm and the government confiscates it and puts you in worker camps to build back better Bill Gates' compact cities. And again, I don't see any other way. They've started demolishing homes in Great Britain already, so that makes it extremely likely that that's their plan, and it can be a combination of these three things that I've listed. And I have to click here. Paint. Martial law, executive order 11,000, seizure of all civilians for work under federal supervision to build back better Bill Gates compact cities. Possible martial law scenarios to prevent global pandemic martial law, prevent protest riot martial law, and prevent terrorist threat martial law being imposed. Preventing beats curing. So ideas to prevent it are welcome. And I also did a video about it. So these 5 measures we can implement next to the WHO guidelines help to prevent or curb the spread of the virus, to destroy SARS-CoV-2 totally and utterly, and any potential threat must be neutralized, whether that's from the government or from the civilians, basically. So they should be arrested, perhaps. And people should keep an eye on their environment. I have to look at my writings, what other points I made. It's 5 points to prevent martial law next to these 5 measures we can implement. But people can stay at home, not go rioting or protesting, and at least go unarmed and wear a vest if they go. I also plan to report about any protests, basically to have a multi-stream, and writing lots of peace emojis and explaining it to prevent martial law. Keep it peaceful, keep an eye out and report them if it looks suspicious, etc. Not for not complying with the mask rule when they're outside anyway. And the third one, the terrorist threat martial law, I think that's more up to the government. But other people can also report anonymously if they know about any suspicious activities to prevent this from happening to us all.
Just sell the Constitution to BTW. The Nazis seized their mainstream media abandoned point. Modern-day Nazis just bought the companies and started using them the way Goebbels used the mainstream media in Germany. Ironically, the German mainstream media is morally superior to our modern-day equivalent, because they didn't join the Nazis willingly. Your time to prepare is short, but some things can be topped off quickly. Oil them, get in some practice for motor memory, and of course check your site picture. Be safe. Hive.blog. Smith Labs, 66 in Information War. Breaking 4,000 armed Trump supporters are plotting to surround the U.S. Capitol, disrupt Biden's inauguration and prevent Democrats from going in. Lawmaker reveals published 5 days ago on 13 January 2021 by Admin. A member of the U.S. Congress has revealed that thousands of armed pro-Donald Trump extremists are plotting to surround the U.S. Capitol ahead of President-elect Joe Biden's inauguration.
So if I'm reading any articles double, it's because I've been working on getting that picture and other stuff. And because the first time perhaps I didn't get it, I was busy with other things, so then I have to read it again. Okay, and we're live, so everybody can write what they think about all this stuff. Our original Rum and Coke is now moderator. Welcome to the moderator club, meneer Liefdevol. I thought I made him a moderator already. You're now moderator, so it's just for posting links to interesting info, not for censoring anybody. Anybody can write anything negative about me or anything they want to. I won't censor it, except perhaps for illegal remarks. But then I just won't write, I won't read them basically. So I noticed that in the chat we can find some illegal remarks sometimes. Kill such and such person, etc. But that's just a chat, you know, so some people can also be satirical, etc. So it's a different status than a real YouTube video or a website. Ronnie's hair. Are they marching in London today? Yes. Okay. Welcome. I made you moderator, so it's only for posting links, not for censoring anybody. Alright, so let's read on.
Connor Lamb, a Pennsylvania Democrat, said he was briefed alongside other lawmakers on a series of new threats against lawmakers and the Capitol itself. They were talking about 4,000 armed patriots to surround the Capitol and prevent any Democrat from going in. Rep. Connor Lamb, a Pennsylvania Democrat, told CNN's Alison Camrota on New Day. On Tuesday, January 12, also read update. New taxes, charges Buhari government has imposed on Nigerians since 2015. They have published rules of engagement, meaning when you shoot and when you don't. So this is an organized group that has a plan. They're committed to doing what they're doing because I think in their minds, they are patriots and they're talking about 1776, and so this is now a contest of wills. He continued, we are not negotiating with or reasoning with these people. They have to be prosecuted, they have to be stopped. And unfortunately, that includes the president, which is why he needs to be impeached and removed from office. Also read President Donald Trump to Congresswomen, you can leave if you hate the U.S. The briefing to lawmakers comes after the FBI released a bulletin warning of armed protests being planned at all 50 state capitals and in Washington, D.C. The news will only increase the state of fear among lawmakers and law enforcement officials following last week's deadly siege at the U.S. Capitol prompted by Trump's refusal to acknowledge Joe Biden's electoral win. They are very strong when we are weak. That is when the mob psychology takes hold and they are emboldened, but when met with actual determined force, I think a lot of these fantasy world beliefs about what will happen when they come to Washington will melt away, one of the Congress members briefed by FBI said to CNN. Also read Aline Doom says, I think there is nothing wrong with social media bill. The member added that lawmakers are hoping National Guard troops who are being dispatched to the Capitol are vetted, because while lawmakers trust most of them, some might be Trump's fans. Ahead of the inauguration in Washington, D.C. on January 20, security measures are being stepped up, with federal, state and local law enforcement agencies preparing for the possibility of more violence. Also read update, Moat didn't sign Mercy as brand ambassador, Nigerian lady cries out. Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser on Monday urged Americans to avoid the city during Biden's inauguration next week and to participate virtually, referring at a news conference to very extreme factions in our country that are armed and dangerous. Trump also approved an emergency declaration for Washington, D.C. ahead of the ceremony after the mayor of the city requested it. The FBI is also tracking reports of various threats to harm President-elect Biden ahead of the presidential inauguration. The bulletin states, also read breaking. Ghanaian prophet, Randolph Otero predicts, DJ Spinal and other top Nigerian musicians to die. Additional reports indicate threats against VP-elect Harris and Speaker Pelosi. Asked if Biden should still do his inauguration outside, Democrat Lamb said if Biden wants to still go ahead he would support him. I believe that Joe Biden was elected president by a huge margin because the American people trust him to exercise powers of commander-in-chief, and I saw him on TV yesterday saying he's not afraid to do this outside. And I agree with him and I believe him, Lamb said. Also read mass ablaments, Igbo leaders no longer respect Ojukwu, his spirit is angry with them, so if that's what he wants to do, I'll be right there beside him because I think the most important thing is to continue showing all Americans that no matter how impassioned and, committed these people who attacked the Capitol are, we are more committed. Trump on Tuesday insisted his speech an hour before last week's siege on the Capitol, in which he told supporters they will never take back our country with weakness, you have to show strength and you have to be strong, was totally appropriate. Also read Maruk says, Ruga. Fulani not planning to install emirs in Enugu, Asaba. The U.S. leader did not address the prospect of additional threats in the days ahead, but said, you always have to avoid violence.
Yes, I hope these DJs don't die. And that the people unite against the common enemy, death. What did I read in the chat? Let's switch to the picture slideshow. I think I just about covered it qua articles. Meneer Liefdevol wrote, the new Pope is gonna start a witch hunt. Well, perhaps if the US population is seen as the witches, I mean, it's clear he openly advocated for a new world order. Also show you the video. And it's associated with the population reduction to 500 million and enslaving humankind. That's the other article that I had something. So I can forget that basically. Or something, perhaps how we call it. Well, basically, perhaps that's what they are pretending. It's sort of satanic inversion, that they'll cause a blackout and declare martial law to catch the pedophiles. That's, of course, an insane idea. To cover up the real intention, in theory. I was going to read this on Wiki. About martial law.
Martial law is the temporary imposition of direct military control of normal civil functions or suspension of civil law by a government, especially in response to a temporary emergency where civil forces are overwhelmed, or in an occupied territory. United States main article, Martial law in the United States. See also, Habeas corpus in the United States section Federal law, and suspension clause in the United States. Martial law has been declared for a state or other locality under various circumstances including after a direct foreign attack, Hawaii after the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, New Orleans during the Battle of New Orleans, after a major disaster, Chicago after the Great Chicago Fire of 1871, San Francisco after the earthquake of 1906, and in response to chaos associated with protests and mob action, San Francisco during the 1934 West Coast waterfront strike, Montgomery, Alabama, following the mob actions against the Freedom Riders. It has also been declared by renegade local leaders seeking to avoid arrest or challenges to their authority, Nauvoo, Illinois by Joseph Smith during the Illinois Mormon War and Utah by Governor Brigham Young during the Utah War. 36. The martial law concept in the United States is closely tied with the right of habeas corpus, which is in essence the right to a hearing on lawful imprisonment, or more broadly, the supervision of law enforcement by the judiciary. The ability to suspend habeas corpus is related to the imposition of martial law. 37. Article 1. Section 9 of the U.S. Constitution states, the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended, unless when in cases of rebellion or invasion the public safety may require it. There have been many instances of the use of the military within the borders of the United States, such as during the Whiskey Rebellion and in the South during the Civil Rights Movement, but these acts are not tantamount to a declaration of martial law. The distinction must be made as clear as that between martial law and military justice, deployment of troops does not necessarily mean that the civil courts cannot function, and as the Supreme Court has noted, citation needed, that is one of the keys vague, to martial law. In United States law, martial law is limited by several court decisions handed down between the American Civil War and World War II. In 1878, Congress passed the Posse Comitatus Act, which, depending on the circumstances, can forbid U.S. military involvement in domestic law enforcement without congressional approval. Citation needed.
Perhaps I can find my article about preventing martial law to talk with my father, and then I can get back to the chat remarks. My father lost his cancer cell phone, so I'll help him look. And perhaps I can first turn on that article about how to prevent martial law. Just trying to disturb my broadcast so they control people in our environment, and they can erase people's memory. And usually they do it by sabotaging us all to reduce the global population to a more enslavable number for New World Order. And people are silenced with directed energy weapons. Synthetic telepathy has been around since 1974. Vermalig patented the apparatus to remotely monitor and alter brain waves. So, I'll just turn this on. Okay, found it, I think. Must be another one. Corrected version. Kom maar aan, momentje graag. This is 1229. This one is also 1229, 413. So the other one may be better. Okay, I'll help my father, and in the meantime read this article. I've covered this in previous broadcasts already. And I don't want to make repetitive content. So the 5 effective measures supposing the population reduction agenda plans. Pressing charges while it's still possible. Also writing to your political leaders, influencing the people that can do something about it. Demanding an investigation into the origins of the SARS-CoV-2 virus and into whether it could be man-made. Our ATD-13 study, for example. Investigation, interrogation of everyone on the Epstein flight log, including Bill Gates, etc. using legal methods we have, and urging them to investigate Bill Gates, the gene-drive mosquitoes, and the oral polio vaccine, etc., spreading the knowledge that 170 global groups, including scientists, want a moratorium on CRISPR-Cas9 gene-drive technology, because it can potentially cause extinction of the human race and up to other species, and therefore also cause extinction of all or most life forms or species in theory. And 6. Use all possible legal means to prevent a population reduction, including peaceful protests, as long as they are permitted by the government. Legal cyber activism, petitions, boycotting of evil companies, corporations, hypnosis, subliminal, influencing politicians and the people. United we stand, people above all, setting the right example, help to prevent and prepare. Okay, so then I'm going to put it on the picture slideshow again. And I will help my father, and when I'm back then I can communicate with you all. So sorry about that. Alright, I'm back, so then I can look at what people write in the chats. Okay. Original Rum and Coke writes, don't know, Ronnie. They had a protest Saturday, I think it was, and the police closed it down very fast. But one other thing is, of course, if this continues with these measures, then more people will go bankrupt, more people will get fired, and it would be an economic crisis, a power grab of the establishment, something, and that they're going for the enslavement of humanity and a population reduction to 500 million. And I just say that to prevent that insane scenario from happening or unfolding or whatever. No Teletubbies. In UK, they've got people walking around with TVs strapped above their heads, telling us not to break COVID rules. Bro. Okay. I have to open a new tab. Thanks for the link. Sustainablemarkets.org is another one. Then I have to look at the live stream here, and then I can easily open these links. And Business Today, some 3 articles. Business Today. Okay. So on Business Today, and this link was sent by Meneer Liefdevol, COVID-19 vaccination 23, COVID-19 vaccination 23 elderly people dead after Pfizer shot in Norway. Oops, something went wrong. I have to replace studio with www. Lockdown's new roundup. This is on UCO Talks. Meet the new Teletubbies Council recruits men with TVs strapped above their heads to walk the streets and warn public not to break COVID lockdown rules. Bizarre move saw volunteers pound streets of Bradford, Yorkshire with screens. Bradford Council announced the quote "eye walkers" unquote scheme this week, but deleted post. The TVs weigh 18 pounds and have a 19-inch screen which are hoisted above shoulders. Can they use, is this an LCD screen or? Well, it may just be an LCD screen, so it's not that heavy. Okay, thanks for the link. Perhaps I can add it to the description of this video, and people can watch these articles for themselves. Sustainable Markets 10-point action plan within framework of sustainable markets and rapid decarbonization. Changing our current trajectory will require bold and imaginative action in 10 key areas, as outlined in HRH, the Prince of Wales 10-point action plan. No, we don't need a sustainability revolution. It's all gigantic scam, power grab of establishments. Okay. Accelerate that transition. Yeah. Sustainability is democide, genocide perpetrated by our local governments. Okay, let's spin the globe on this one. So that's on sustainable-markets.org. 10-point action plan. Platforms connecting investments to investables by using platforms that can rapidly scale solutions and transform the marketplace. So they want to determine what you can invest in, etc. So that only they can make money and the rest dies. 2. Prices embedding positive and negative social and environmental costs into goods and services to ensure sustainable options are obtainable. Well, they want to tell us what we can and cannot do, basically, and tie the environmental costs to goods and services they offer, basically. This is just a theory about what I'm reading, basically. Then standards, number 3, adopting common metrics and standards so consumers, investors, and shareholders are better informed to make better decisions and sustainable options, the trusted and attainable option. Well, I think it largely rests on the carbon tax scam of Al Gore, paid by George Soros for his carbon tax scam story. And that is the anthropogenic global warming hoax. In reality, the sun, solar activity drives the climate and the amount of CO2, not the other way around, and species have died because of a lack of CO2. And CO2 is good for you, also according to Piers Corbyn. And is there any better option for the mayor of London? It's running for mayor. I doubt if there is a better option. For nature, investing in nature is the true engine of our economy. So no cutting down of trees to irradiate people to death, and no cutting off of one of the cleanest forms of energy, natural gas. So in the Netherlands, they're cutting that off, and also they claim there were earthquakes, which I have not felt, in Groningen. So basically the idea is to make sure that people don't have natural gas and they die. So the cold, with their designer virus, according to US senators, would kill millions or billions, basically. And that may also be the reason they want people to have a so-called smart cancer cell phone radiation emitting meter, smart meter, they call them. I'd rather have a smart meter that doesn't irradiate me to death. But then when an EMP occurs, for example, they are without gas and without electricity, of course. Innovation. It's like a permanent resting day, you could argue. Innovation, invest in STEM, innovation and research and development with a focus on sustainable solutions. Well, it may all sound very reasonable. I think that wind energy is more efficient than sea. I know that sea energy is more efficient than wind energy, but they're placing these wind turbines to give the illusion that the government is going green, etc. And the telluric power, geothermal energy, is almost always left out. And I don't know if Extinction Rebellion has written or talked about ionospheric heaters that use natural gas and diesel to generate radiation, and 5G, what the impact is of 5G on the climate, for example. Innovation, invest in STEM, innovation, research and development with a focus on sustainable solutions. brain stem, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So I think it is in reality the systemic inversion is to make it all unsustainable and to reduce the global population, basically. Also by generating this crisis big enough to impose their satanic Luciferian totalitarian global government. Policies reversing perverse subsidies and improving incentives for sustainable alternatives. 7 solutions identify game-changing technologies and emerging solutions, whilst eliminating barriers to transition. It sounds very businessified to me. Another term they are using is disruption, I think. 8 systems transitioning our existing systems by creating entirely new industries, products, services, and supply chains. So to build a new world order, you first have to destroy the old world order, get rid of the governments, crash it all with a crisis big enough to impose more draconian measures and impose the global government that will enslave humanity completely. That's also the World Economic Forum slogan: you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. My father is back in the room, so I'll have to talk with him. So I'm back. So I've covered that in previous broadcasts as well. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. The World Economic Forum slogan of 2016. You can still find that on their Facebook page, or was it Twitter? Pathways outlining responsible transition pathways to decarbonize and achieve net and negative zero to reimagine industries through the lens of sustainable markets. So they're focusing on the wrong thing to kill us all, to reduce the global population. They focus on CO2 instead of things that are a real threat to humanity. And I think dioxin and some other, for example, you have plastified sea salt, etc., plastic. But they shouldn't do away with these things until they have a better alternative, a better solution, not to endanger lives and stop their disproportionate, unconstitutional coronavirus measure policy that may be killing more people than the virus, also according to a Nobel Prize winner and a professor, but there may be others. These were just mainstream media articles, others that expose it better, basically. 10 default settings. Shift default settings to sustainable. Well, then we'd all have to get down to zero, we'd all have to die, so that's not going to happen in their mind. 8 billion people is not sustainable. And Bill Gates talked about a population reduction of 10 to 15% with vaccines, healthcare, and reproductive health services. But even if everybody would become sterile, that would take a whole generation. So how is he planning to reduce that global population before 2030, for example? A billion people, less than 15% of the global population. I think you can do that with healthy vaccines that make people have less children, because then they wouldn't die. They just wouldn't have kids, so then it would take a whole generation, like 60, 70 years before that would be achieved, so that wouldn't be by 2030. Okay. So I'm going to read the text-to-speech engine chat messages. I'll just read them with the text-to-speech engine.
Ronnie's here. New Teletubbies. Rum ... Original. Rum and Coke. Yep, Ronnie. Ronnie's here. I don't know. Rum. Ronnie's here. Tea time, Rum. I'll catch you in a while. Original. Rum and Coke. At first I thought it was a joke until I found that video. Original. Rum and Coke. Okay, thanks for coming, Ronnie. Ronnie's here. Where's this all gonna lead, I wonder? Ronnie's here. No problem, Rum. Welcome to live chat. Remember to guard your privacy and abide by our community guidelines. Original. Rum and Coke. They have been cutting down trees in UK. Because 5G needs a direct line of sight. Apparently. Original. Rum and Coke. On the island that my dad lives on, they get all their electricity from turbines mounted on the seabed. Bert bricks to drive us to suicide, I think. Bert bricks to, yeah, that's it, they're driving us bonkers.
Well, suicide programming and no talk programming, that can be part of it. But everybody has their own program. And people can do a self-hypnosis, so they never commit suicide, and they're not controllable by their emotions, but only by logic. Because they can also control human emotion. They can induce unnatural amounts of hate, love, courage, fear. Microphone. This way, right. Stand. So yeah, then I can just talk freely. So this was the whole broadcast about articles. I might put these 3 links. Thanks for the links in the description of the video. And then I'm now rolling, and then I can talk about stuff, whatever I think is necessary to prevent martial law. And to prevent that population reduction to 500 million, some of them may have planned. Of course, the Georgia Guidestones cost $1 million, so that means there are people that spend a lot of money on spreading the message to maintain the global population under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature or something. But I think it's great. I had a lot of views. Normally my broadcasts are better, but I thought I have to do this video because that could be the possible planned staged scenario for martial law. I can read the businesstoday.in article.
COVID-19 vaccination. 23 elderly people dead after Pfizer shot in Norway. Norway COVID-19 immunization. The Norwegian Institute of Public Health has cautioned against vaccinating elderly people above 80 years of age, saying those with a short lifespan may not benefit much from the jab. Twitter logo businesstoday.in, January 16, 2021, updated 12:13 IST. COVID-19 vaccination. 23 elderly people dead after Pfizer shot in Norway. COVID-19 vaccination in Norway. Besides the 23 deaths, several people have fallen ill due to the Pfizer-BioNTech coronavirus vaccine. More from the author. DHFL lenders approve Pyramid bid for resolution plan. Facebook, Twitter to face Parle panel on Jan 21, social media misuse in focus in a worrying development. 23 elderly people died within a short time of receiving their first coronavirus vaccine shots in Norway. However, there is no confirmation yet if there is direct correlation between the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 jab and these deaths. Although a direct correlation between the Pfizer jab and these deaths is yet to be established, experts have said that 13 out of 23 people who died showed common side effects of mRNA vaccines such as diarrhea, nausea and fever. The Norwegian Institute of Public Health has cautioned against vaccinating elderly people above 80 years of age, saying those with a short lifespan may not benefit much from the jab. The Norwegian regulator further told Bloomberg, for those with the most severe frailty, even relatively mild vaccine side effects can have serious consequences. Pfizer and BioNTech are working with the Norwegian authorities to investigate the deaths in Norway. According to Pfizer, the regulator discovered the number of incidents so far is not alarming and in line with expectations. Experts are of the strong opinion that doctors need to exercise strong caution in vaccinating people in the wake of deaths of 23 elderly people. The Norwegian Medicines Agency said in a recent report that 21 women and 8 men reported side effects. Apart from the 23 deaths, 9 people have reported serious side effects without fatal outcomes such as allergic reactions, strong discomfort and severe fever. 7 people reported less serious side effects such as severe pain at the injection site. Meanwhile, Norway had administered at least 1 dose of the Pfizer or Moderna coronavirus vaccines to approximately 33,000 people by end of December. Also read, Pfizer must conduct a local study for vaccine approval. VK Paul. Also read, cyber attacks can plunge India's COVID vaccination drive into pandemonium. Experts.
Okay. Bert Brickstow writes, open your windows and let the COVID spores out. That is what they tell the British people. But stay warm. If you do that, it is good to ventilate once in a while. Feel those. Original Roman Coke writes, yep, lol, for me, the world has gone crazy over the last year. But Rickstow writes, I agree, Rum, it's a very interesting and amusing time. Yes. More links are welcome. There aren't any spores, Bert Brickstow writes. Well, perhaps they mean aerosols or something. Or perhaps they mean spores. Next it's squirrel. Top 10 reasons the Netherlands should leave the EU. That would take a while to find. I made a PDF that can be spread as a flyer also. In English. Okay, here we go.
Top 10 reasons for Nexit. Top 10 reasons for the Netherlands to leave the EU. Nexiters unite. Not to become a slave of Brussels in a George Soros EU superstate. A good top 10 of reasons for Nexit is found on the Dutch website dalangemars.nl, so I will cover it here. Add your own reasons. This is just a beginning. All credit goes to Rob Vellekoop. Please forgive me for earlier mistranslations and check the description of this video for the translation I made with the help of Google Translate and by making corrections myself where necessary. Print out the original text and hand the flyers out to the Dutch public. It's never too late. Expose, unite and fight the good fight. Debate, hand out flyers, protest, never give up. The article is found in Dutch on dalangemars.nl. The founder countries fear that the EU disintegrates with the upcoming elections in Germany, France and the Netherlands in 2017, precisely where the anti-EU parties are doing well. 10 reasons for our withdrawal from the EU. 1. The European Union is a concentration of power in which the role of the citizen is even smaller than on the national level. Within the EU, the European Parliament is not the boss. Laws are established at the initiative of the European Commission, which it submits to the Council, box, ministers that must reach agreement with the European Parliament on this matter. To the wealthy elite benefit from the concentration of power in one day. The rich lost more than 100 billion after the United Kingdom and Gibraltar European Union membership referendum. 3 over 50 years of EEC and EU citizens brought little good, more poverty, unemployment. 1 in 4 Europeans live in poverty. 4 within the EU, the largest countries determine the policy along with the multinationals. The FTATTIP is cooked up in secret by the European Commission and the US. All information about TIP, Google. 5. The EU has exceeded its limits since European cooperation goes much too far, and it is also possible in a less drastic way. Look at Norway, Switzerland working closely with other European countries through treaties. 6. The introduction of the euro is an example that shows the EU is increasingly dictatorial. See Greece. 7. The officials of the EU commuting between Brussels and Strasbourg devour billions of euros. 8. The EU was created in 2005 against the will of the Dutch and French people who have voted against it in referendums. 9. Member states are handing in more and more independence, increasingly ruled from Brussels. European legislation adds up to more than 100,000 pages. 10. The EU is not listening to its citizens. For example, almost nobody knows that the EU is headed by 4 presidents. That is the President of the European Council Tusk, President of the European Parliament Schulz, Interim President Ruud Juncker and President of the European Commission. Thank you Rob Vellacoop for producing this overview on June 26, 2016. Another example of the EU not listening to its citizens, to quote Paul Joseph Watson of InfoWars, controlled opposition, citizens across.
So of course InfoWars is banned, Alex Jones is banned. Just listen to this anyway, because it's a good point.
The continent voted to reject the Maastricht Treaty, the NICE, pronounced sneeze, treaty, to reject the EU Constitution. Citizens across the continent voted to reject the Maastricht Treaty, the NICE, pronounced sneeze, treaty, to reject the EU Constitution, to reject the Lisbon Treaty, to reject the Euro bailout. Every time the votes were ignored, emphasizing the fundamentally anti-democratic nature of the European Union. Right on, Mr. Watson. Let people know, the EU is bad for you, the EU is leaving the EU. It should. How bad can you get? They will all be slaves of Brussels if they continue down the path they are on.
Okay, now I can read your comments. I have to look where I left off.
Original, rum and coke. At first I thought it was a joke until I found that video. Original, rum and coke. Okay, thanks for coming Ronnie. Ronnie's here. Where's this all gonna lead I wonder? Ronnie's here. No problem rum. Welcome to live chat. Remember to guard your privacy and abide by our community guidelines. Original, rum and coke. They have been cutting down trees in UK, because 5G needs a direct line of sight. Apparently. Original, rum and coke. On the island that my dad lives on, they get all their electricity from turbines mounted on the seabed. Bert Brickstow drive us to suicide I think. Bert Brickstow, yeah that's it, they're driving us bonkers. Bert Brickstow, powerful aren't they? Are puppet masters. Bert Brickstow, I won't be watching the inauguration. I don't wish to be spiritually damaged. Original, rum and coke. Same here Bert. Bert Brickstow, open your windows and let the COVID spores out. That is what they tell the British people. Original, rum and coke. Yep lol. Original, rum and coke. For me the world has gone crazy over the last year. Bert Brickstow, I agree rum. It's a very interesting and amusing time. Bert Brickstow, there aren't any spores. Bert Brickstow, you have to laugh. Bert Brickstow, they mean COVID spores. Original, rum and coke. Every day for 6 months the news in UK has been telling us 90% of people who get the virus won't even notice that they have it. And now they are saying that we all need the vaccine. Original, rum and coke, and now they changed the wording from vaccine to the jab. Just watch, many people now call it the jab. Bert Bristow, it's a shakedown. Money circulating among rich investors at the taxpayer's expense. Crippling national debt. Original, rum and coke. I read that the words media is controlled by 6 men. Bert Bristow, vaccine could be placebo, just a scam. Original, rum and coke worlds. Bert Bristow, it's a rich man's game. Original, rum and coke. Well, experts say it takes 4 years to test a new vaccine out. Not 4 months. Original, rum and coke. Before people take the vaccine, they have to sign a disclaimer. So if anything happens, you can't do anything about it. Original, rum and coke are them for people. All German. Genuine News, say something.
We've never created a new vaccine. We've never created a new vaccine. We've never created a new vaccine in less than 5 years. So I am optimistic that one of the vaccine efforts will give us vaccines in the next 18 months. And
well, basically it's a compilation of 2 things Bill Gates said in one video. Is it the race for a COVID-19 vaccine explained again? On his channel, so people can subscribe to follow what Bill Gates is producing on YouTube. Loving the text-to-speech reading, the messages. Yeah. Faultless, flawless, and understandable. With the mic there can be some problems, depending on the settings also, but I think I'm reasonably understandable. I haven't found my other mic yet, my better mic. Original rum coke, yes, I'm enjoying it too, good. Alright. Oh yeah, what I'm showing is a map that shows the locations of the 5G antennas in the Netherlands. I think that's via antennaregister.nl. The HTML5 viewer, yeah, antennaregister.nl. For the people in the Netherlands, perhaps they also have it for other countries. And then you can specifically see which antennas are 5G, 4G, etc. 2G GSM, that's a lower frequency, so that penetrates the human body more than the higher frequencies. And for the higher frequencies, they need more energy to reach the people, basically. 3G UMTS, cancer UMTS, cancer GSM, cancer LTE, 5G new cancer radio, and some other stuff. And you can select that in the left top corner under antenna register, and you can select the type of antennas that you want to see. So it's pretty spread out already, unfortunately. But it's never too late to roll up 5G and replace it with the scalar technology, radiant energy patent of Nikola Tesla, since scalar waves travel faster and then they can use curative frequencies instead of harmful frequencies or weaponized frequencies. 5G is a weapon, they claim, and this is also because they have 95 gigahertz crowd control boxes. 5G crowd control is a reality that was even talked about in the Dutch parliament. And it damages people's skin. 95 gigahertz basically burns people's skin. And I don't know if that's a good idea when you have crowds to burn their skin and they want to move out of that beam. then they could trample each other to death. So I don't know, again, if that's a good idea. That's another matter, so perhaps they shouldn't be used either. I don't know if they've trained that with large crowds or just a couple of people that were willing to undergo it for money or whatever. So Bill Gates said less than 5 years. They've never created a vaccine in less than 5 years, not 4 years. Many 5G masts in Amsterdam, also Utrecht, Mars, where I live. You can see 3 of them. The purple dots are the 5G antennas. So the idea is prevent martial law from being imposed, and more ideas are welcome via the chat or via Skype Prologic 999. .5G is niet oké.nl is a website for the Dutch people. Bert Bristow, the tech age has great potential for new positive opportunities, but also has potentially harmful outcomes. The world needs caution. Original caution, vigilance, prepping. Original rum and coke when they tested 5G in a park in the Netherlands. 77 birds fell from the sky, all dead. Original rum and coke wrote starlings. Well, I've read that bird species have gone extinct because of 5G. And they've known for a long time that these radio masts, etc., kill bird species also and make them go extinct. But it's a population reduction agenda. They have a seed bank in Norway so they can bring back all species. The message was retracted, so then I can't read it anymore. The Dutch gov say the starlings had a virus! Exclamation mark. Well, the Fullerton Informer video has 1 million views. So Joe Imbriano of the Fullerton Informer predicted that 5G would be rolled out, and after that would be a lot of deaths, and they would blame it on a virus, a fictional virus basically, in 2018. So that's why it has over 1 million views now. So I think that's it for this broadcast. Perhaps I can add these 3 links to the description. This is definitely not my best broadcast, but it is pretty interesting. Starlings faulty. It's a reference to Faulty Towers, a 1970s British TV sitcom. Wow. Well, of course, I haven't verified anything that's written in the chat. And they're just public opinion, basically. And of course, they can also write about important facts. But some people disagree with some things. a disclaimer. You don't have to sign a disclaimer. Anyway, I don't know which remark it was, but okay. Some people would claim it's fake news, blah blah. So I base my opinions on science, reproducible tests, and not on hearsay, and not even stuff produced by the mainstream media, or seen by me as necessarily true. Cheers, Bert. Cheers, Ulrich. Cheers, Rum. So the cancer-causing killer alcohol should be avoided. It's better to expand our consciousness than to narrow it down. And people can also eat cannabis, which is scientifically proven to kill tumors, VEGF, vascular endothelial growth factor, etc. Okay, so check my more important broadcasts on my channel. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for your likes, subscribes, and your comments in the chat. Kiss for seeing ladies who liked it. And I hope to see you all next time on this channel, Perfect Society. And please spread important stuff on your timeline. Think about how it could impact or change your timeline, etc. And to do something, people have to first think about it, otherwise they can't do it. Alright, well, I hope to see you all next time on Genuine News. I'm Ulrich Hoffman. May peace be with you all. And see you next time on Genuine News. And check my other channel, also Perfect Society. Link is in the description. Also on YouTube, and perhaps try something called Vegetarian or the Future channel on YouTube. Thank you all for being there. See you next time. Peace out.